Hey love bugs, welcome back to another Tarot Lover Reviews. Today we are taking a look at the Pulp Tarot by Todd Alcott. So if you've heard of this tarot deck or you haven't, hopefully this review and the flip through that comes afterwards helps you to decide on whether or not this tarot deck is right for you. Now if you want to skip to the flip through, feel free to take a look at my description down below. I break down all the suits into chapters to make it easier for you to locate exactly where in the flip through you would like to start. But right now we are going to talk about the packaging. We're going to talk about the guidebook. We're going to talk about the cards, cardstock, the backing of the cards, the texture of the cards, imagery, naming convention, all the things. So if you are interested in the details, feel free to stick around. Otherwise, feel free to head on over to the flip through. So let's go ahead and talk about the packaging. So we saw the first part, and what I love about this is that it looks like a book. Literally looks like a book. And the packaging opens like so, like a book. And here's the interior. You have the ribbon here to take your tarot deck out, to make it a lot easier to take your tarot deck out. You have the insert here to keep your tarot deck centered. The packaging is thick, so that's always nice. I always appreciate when the packaging is thick, because just in case your packaging with your tarot deck in it were to fall to the floor, maybe a couple of feet from the air, your tarot deck is not going to get damaged. It's only going to be the packaging that takes most of the damage, if any. So that is one thing that I absolutely appreciate, is that the packaging is thicker so that it takes that into account, and it keeps the tarot deck centered within the box. They're not slipping and going all over the place. They're evenly centered within the packaging. Now, the one thing I will say about this packaging that I don't really like is that there is no metal clasp to this cover. So if you have your box like this, which is how I would want to keep it, like a book on my bookshelf, if you don't have anything up against the top part of the packaging, the box is going to open like that. Like I could turn it this way to the side even, so you guys can see I'm not like literally tilting it that way. But if I kind of leave it tilting this way, it still opens up on its own. So I'm kind of sad that they didn't put any magnet clasps to it so that it keeps the cover closed. Other than that, I love the idea of doing the packaging this way. So that is our packaging. Now let's go ahead and talk about the guidebook. With this particular tarot deck, you get a little white book. So this is what that book looks like. And it is all in English. Sometimes you get multiple languages in guidebooks like this, but it is all in English. You have an introductory section in the beginning, and then it goes right into each of the tarot cards. Now, the one thing that I will say about this particular guidebook, you do get more information. And I think that's mainly because it's just nothing but English in this guidebook. So you have more space, more pages to utilize in order to provide more information for each of the cards, right? Now, the one thing that I will say, it does not have or indicate a reversal meaning. So the paragraph that's provided for each of these cards will most likely be a combination of both upright and reversal. So the first part of the paragraph may be in regards to the upright part of it, and then the last portion of the paragraph refers to the reversal side of things. I don't necessarily utilize guidebooks like this, mainly because I don't feel like they provide too much information, but you can always take a look at it if you choose to. Now, the one thing I will say, this guidebook does not come with a tarot spread in it. Normally with little white books, there is at least one tarot spread in there, but unfortunately this guidebook does not. And I will always say it, it's always good to at least have one tarot spread in a guidebook, even if it's just going to be a 3-card spread. Something that new tarot readers can utilize is great. You know what I mean? Yes, you can go online. Yes, you can find 1,000 different tarot spreads that you can utilize, but nothing beats having something physical and available to you right away that you can utilize for any given reading. So that's another thing that I noticed in regards to this particular tarot deck. So let's go ahead and talk about the cards. So let's first take a look at the backing, the card texture, and the card size, along with the card stock. So this is the back of the card, and that's the Pulp Tarot. So you'll see it here. It says the Pulp Tarot, and they basically make little cubes for the design. Okay, and then it is in a matte finish. You do get a bit of a glare, but it's because it's matte. Okay, the card stock it's a pretty good card stock. It's not too thick, not too thin, so I would definitely say it is in the Goldilocks zone of card stock. If you don't know what I mean by that, I mean if you can take your, if I can keep the cards in my hands, if you were to split your cards in half and do the riffle shuffle, which is the weaving of your cards like so, and you are able to shuffle them that way, like it was easy for me to do there, that means that your cards are, the thickness of the cards is good enough to be able to do that effortlessly. You get a good amount of bend with some tension. If you didn't have very much tension, then you would be able to super bend the cards. That just means the card stock is a little bit thinner and there's more flexibility with thinner cards. When the card stock is a good card stock is when you can get a little bit of bend enough to where you can do that riffle shuffle if you wanted to. I'm not saying you have to do it that way. You can shuffle your tarot decks however way that you want. You don't have to necessarily use that method, but it gives you a visual on what I mean by the card stock, because if it was thicker card stock, I would not be able to bend it in that manner to shuffle it like that. Typically with thicker card stock, you would have to kind of do, you know, the under over method that a lot of people do, or you can shuffle it a ton of different ways. It doesn't really matter. It's all up to you and your preferences. I just like to mention that riffle shuffle because it is a great visual key on how thick or thin a tarot deck is for cardstock. So I would say the cardstock is a very good cardstock. It has some structure to it and it's not too thin to where I feel like I can just bend my cards a little too much. Now, as far as the size of the cards, I feel like it's a little bit on the thinner side. So I do have a Rider-Waite-Smith tarot card as an example that we can use, and we have the Pulp Tarot here. Oh, never mind, they are exactly the same size. So this is the same size as your average tarot deck, which is fantastic. You won't be able to tell a difference when utilizing this deck. So that is your size, the cardstock, the back, the texture. Let's talk about the imagery and the naming convention. So with this, I am always comparing this piece of the review to the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery and naming convention. The reason why I do that is because a ton of the guidebooks out there that you can purchase separately are largely based off of the Rider-Waite-Smith naming convention and imagery. So if you have any of these guidebooks and you choose to use the particular tarot deck that I am reviewing right now, I want to make sure that you are able to utilize this deck with that book, or at least let you know, hey, this deck is not going to work for those particular type of guidebooks. So that's why I do this comparison. And on top of that, if you are a brand new tarot reader on their tarot journey, typically you are starting with the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery and naming convention, and you might just be used to the imagery. So if you are wanting to move away from that imagery, you know, the really dated imagery, and you want to go into something more modern, you want to know whether or not this particular tarot deck looks like it, but doesn't look like the RWS, if that makes sense. So let's go ahead and talk about the naming convention. So the naming convention, what I mean by that is all the major arcana, all the names for all the major arcana based off of the RWS. Are they the same to this particular tarot deck? And the answer is yes. All of them are named exactly the same. So you will find out there, when a tarot creator creates their tarot deck, they can name it however they want to name it, as long as they're sticking to the structure of tarot, right? So there may be times where the naming convention for some of these cards are going to be completely different than the RWS. So for example, like death. The death card tends to be transformation. It may be named transformation in other tarot decks. So it can be named differently. It doesn't have to be named the way that the RWS has it, but again, still has to fall under the same process, the same structure as tarot. So major arcana is perfectly the same as the RWS. The minor arcana, same thing. The naming convention is exactly the same. You have your 4 suits: cups, wands, swords, and pentacles. And then the court cards are exactly the same as well: page, knight, queen, and kings. So that's perfect. No differences there. Let's talk about the imagery. Now, with the imagery in this tarot deck, you do get very much RWS imagery vibes from it, but from a pinup standpoint. So you have temperance here. So you still have the pouring of the cups, the duality, right? So you, by looking at that, if you are used to the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck, you will know what that card is by just looking at the imagery, because there is similarities in this tarot deck to the RWS. Another one would be the 6 of Pentacles. It may not be the exact imagery, but you still see the key symbols, the key components of the original RWS in this card. And it's made in such a way that they look like old magazines. I love the whole old magazine vibe. It's just, I love it. And I think some of them have like, it just looks like magazines, comic books, old movie posters. Sorry, my video kind of cut out there for a second. But yeah, the imagery in this tarot deck is absolutely beautiful, especially if you love the whole pinup vibe. I did notice that in some of the cards, there's notable actors, actresses that I recognize. One being the Justice card. I believe this is from the movie Jackie Brown. I could be wrong. Please leave a comment if I am incorrect and it's something else. But I want to say that's from Jackie Brown, I think. I don't know. But let me know. But yeah, other than that, definitely love the cardstock. The backing's beautiful. This has been something that was in my cart for quite some time. I just never really pulled the trigger. I found myself adding it and removing it from my cart a number of times because I just wasn't sure whether or not it was a tarot deck that I would want to utilize a lot. I will say that it might not be something I use a whole lot, but something I will use more than not at all, where I do have tarot decks that I don't really use at all because of some other items, but that's beside the point. What else? I'm staring at it. The only thing I will say as far as a pain point, besides the box not having the metal clasps to hold the top down, is I guess this would be the manufacturer. It would be a manufacturer issue. I have not had this tarot deck but a week, and you can see it's like this dark line right here. Do you have it? Yeah, it's on this side as well. It's like a really dirty, I know it's kind of hard to see. There we go. It's like really dirty right here. And it's just on, yeah, it's just on this side, and then yeah, on this side, and then on the top part of this side. It's just really, really weird. So it kind of makes it look like the cards are a bit worn out than they really are, but I figured that's probably going to be a manufacturer issue, because typically that's what happens when you're trying to mass market a particular tarot deck. The quality of the cards and the quality assurance of the cards are not so important when you're mass marketing, and it causes little defects like the sides of the cards. And of course, it may not be a really big deal to you, because as you use the cards, it's going to get scuffled. There's going to be the wear and tear on the cards. So this may not be a big issue for you, but I do want to make sure that I point it out just in case you do see it and you're wondering what the heck. But yeah, other than that, I hope this was helpful. If it was, leave a like. And if you want, check out my channel, see if there are any other tarot decks that I have reviewed that you might be interested in seeing. If there is a tarot deck that you are interested in a review being done, let me know what that tarot deck is. I will take a look at it. I won't make any promises because I want to be able to use these tarot decks and not just have them because I want to do a review on them. I hate having to return tarot decks. This particular tarot deck, I don't feel like I need to return because I do love the imagery. I do love the pinup style. And so it will stay within my collection for sure. But it's for those other ones that I'm just buying because someone said I should buy it. I want to be able to utilize it, guys. So if there's a tarot deck that I haven't done, but you might feel like I'd be interested in reviewing it, leave me a comment, let me know. But without further ado, here is the flip through. Enjoy, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.